Hi there. Good news. In a recent interview, screenwriter Max Borenstein said that he still hopes to get his Game of Thrones prequel pitch made. He was one of the original 5 pitches that they commissioned back in summer of 2018. And in late 2018, I myself made a big leak through Game of Thrones Wiki and my own YouTube channel here that his prequel is on the doom of Valyria, and it's titled Empire of Ash. And I made profiles on the 3 major factions in it, the Sphinxes, the Young Dragons, the Freeholders, and all sorts of stuff, and it generated some good excitement there. But ultimately we didn't hear about it. What we later heard from linguist David J. Peterson was that the 3 out of 5 pitches that advanced to the point they had story Bibles and stuff were Long Night, Dance of the Dragons, and Doom of Valyria. Long Night got cancelled, Dance of the Dragons is titled House of the Dragon, but Valyria was never formally cancelled, it's just in limbo. And, Borenstein sees the same news that we do. In the past few weeks of March, January 2021, HBO has been announcing all these other new prequel pitches they want to hear about Nymeria and the Rhoynar, about Corlys Velarion's voyages. So, Borenstein is probably best well known for being the screenwriter on the MonsterVerse movie franchise with Godzilla and King Kong. So, because Godzilla vs. Kong just came out, he was making the interview circuit, over Zoom, because of the pandemic, and someone asked him about it, and it was an interview with Collider on April 6th. They asked, what's the situation with that? And he acknowledged, there's all this talk about other prequel pitches. I am hopeful that now, under new HBO leadership, they'll reconsider me. Because he put a lot of work into his project. He doesn't want, the big news for me is that he isn't just moving on. That, he spent a year or 2 working on story Bibles. I have seen that there, with my own eyes, over the leak thing that I saw when someone showed me the story Bible, and that there's a 200-page outline for season 1 of this, a 10-episode first season. A story outline, it's a scene-by-scene breakdown, not to the level of dialogue. Lots of shows do this where they have a scene-by-scene breakdown. And they have a full writing staff. They put a lot of work into this that Borenstein wouldn't just want to give up on, oh, well, that's 2 years gone to waste. He still wants to make this. Which is really encouraging that the major screenwriters still pushing to get this project made. And remember, the people who passed on this were the old HBO leadership under Richard Plepler. The morons who picked the racist Long Night prequel, who picked that ahead of Dance of the Dragons. It's the new people that AT&T put in charge, and just now AT&T wants to divest Warner Media into other groups, so it's our 3rd leadership shake-up in as many years. Who knows if the new leadership will reconsider this? I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I see what you guys do, that we just heard a bunch of prequel pitches 2 months ago for 10,000 Ships, for Corlys Velaryon, for Flea Bottom they're considering. Why not Doom of Valyria when it's already a really developed idea? Well, in the Collider interview, this is, let me directly quote off what Borenstein said. I had an amazing experience with it. We did a tremendous amount of work. I'm really proud of it. And maybe one day it'll have its moment. That's my hope for it. Right now, they're really developing out a lot of projects in that world. And I'm doing a different show at the network that I'm deeply in love with. I'm also really in love with that project, the prequel he was working on, and would love to one day be able to do it, so we'll see. It was very developed in terms of the world and the story Bible. He admits there was a story Bible. There was a script, there were outlines, we had a title, we had a lot of stuff. It's definitely in their court as to what could theoretically get released. So let's unpack what he said here, that the different project that he said, I'm working on a different project now. He's currently working on a big upcoming TV show for HBO. He said for this network, for HBO, this big upcoming project, which doesn't have a formal title yet, about the history of the LA Lakers basketball team in the 1980s. That dream team they had then. It's based on a book about that period, actually. It's based on a book called Showtime: Magic, Kareem, Riley, and the Los Angeles Lakers Dynasty of the 1980s. So they're adapting this book about the history of the LA Lakers in the glory days of the 80s into this TV show. It's a sports drama. Filming on that actually began last month on April 21st and is set to conclude on October 31st. Now, I told other people about this when they asked in the comments, why didn't we see more motion on Empire of Ash, on the Valyria prequel? I said, guys, writers don't just make a pitch and then sit around not doing any work for 2 years waiting for the studio to pick it up. I mean, a guy's got to eat. And when other people are worried, when the news about the LA Lakers thing came out about a year ago, and I just told them, he has to pick up a job to work on in the meantime. And sometimes it's a problem you want to have where you get picked up for a really big project to the point that it ties up your schedule for the thing you were waiting for. I mean, Peter Jackson didn't immediately move on to The Hobbit after The Lord of the Rings because there were copyright licensing issues. And in the meantime, because he couldn't just wait around doing nothing, he got contracts for other movies like his King Kong. And ultimately, sometimes you get signed on for a long movie or a long TV project that even if they greenlight the thing you were waiting on, well, now I'm busy with something else. You waited too long. But the key thing is that Borenstein still wants to make it. So the old HBO leadership wasn't picking it up. They'd made a stupid choice. In the meantime, Borenstein had to have a job of some kind. He got picked up for this high-profile show about the LA Lakers, a sports drama. It's not a documentary, it's a fictionalized drama of it. And even if they greenlit Valyria today, he's busy with that right now, but he still wants to move on to his prequel after that finishes. Exactly how long it lasts, I'm not sure, but Empire of Ash is on hold now. When people ask, I say, well, it's not dead. The writer who pitched it still wants to do it, but it's in limbo. It's in development hell. But the big thing is, I would have been, if he gave up on it, that would have been the end of it. But it's not dead. It's on hold. He still really wants to make it. As he points out repeatedly in this quote, so much work went into this. They had story Bibles, they had outlines for all the seasons. For season 1 was really heavily outlined. And as Borenstein himself points out, the fact that they're considering a lot of new pitches now, that the new owners of HBO really want to expand to compete with all the Star Wars expansion, that's encouraging. Hopefully they'll reconsider one of the other pitch ideas which was really heavily developed. It's not just, you give like 100-page pitch treatment. It's, no, we have season outlines and story Bibles and stuff. This thing was ready to go. So our best case scenario is that when Borenstein's LA Lakers show finishes up, he'll be freed again to repitch Empire of Ash. Actually, he isn't the showrunner on the LA Lakers project. He's one of 3 writers that are co-running it. So it's possible that if it runs more than a season or 2, I don't know how long it would take to adapt one book about the Lakers in the 1980s. If it's like season 3 of that show, he might leave, hand it off to the other 2 writers and go, I got this big deal to do a Valyria show. We'll see what happens. And it's also encouraging to me that this isn't just a big show for any network, but specifically for HBO. And on a very popular subject. It's not like some obscure genre thing like The Nevers, even though I've heard that's good. But this is the LA Lakers in the 1980s as a sports drama. This is going to be a very high-profile project, and not just for anyone, but for HBO itself. So, if it's a success, as it probably will be, it stands to reason that that will heavily increase Borenstein's standing within the production circles at HBO itself, right? To make him bigger for that, and he personally wants to do Valyria. So with that under his belt, it'll give him more pull at the network to, well, I want to make that Valyria thing I pitched. Let me clarify. At no point did Borenstein admit he was doing a Valyria prequel, much less that it's titled Empire of Ash, and all the specifics I leaked out about the factions in it are real. But he did indirectly admit that he was indeed doing Valyria. Because, notice, he admitted in this most recent interview, concrete admission, this was a really developed project. I had story Bibles for it and outlines, right? In separate interviews, linguist David J. Peterson, as I said, admitted only 3 prequel pitches out of the original 5 actually had story Bibles or were that developed. Long Night, House of the Dragon, and Old Valyria, Doom of Valyria. So by process of elimination, he's admitting, I had a story Bible. There's 3 that had story Bibles, 2 we can account for. Process of elimination, he just indirectly admitted, I was the third idea, and the third idea was Valyria, according to Peterson. So I would feel justified making, a wiki page about this. If, he admitted he had a story Bible, Peterson said the third story Bible was Valyria, Old Valyria, and the Doom and everything. So I'm just really encouraged, what he said, that he hasn't given up on it, and the fact that they're considering a new wave of prequel pitches makes him think he has a good chance. And just, it's on pause because he went to do this high-profile LA Lakers project because he couldn't just wait around not working for 3 years. So when people, that's dead, people need to mock the fans, but it's on hold, but it's one of the major prequel ideas. It's Rome with dragons. I'd watch that with all this stuff. And as I talked about in my preceding video, they just hired a different writer to make the pitch pilot script for Nymeria and the 10,000 Ships of the Rhoynar. That isn't greenlit. They didn't order a pilot to film. It's just, things go through phases. A pitch isn't a script. They liked the pitch, and now they've ordered a script, and now the HBO will see if they like the script by Amanda Siegel for that. And I've seen 1 or 2 other channels like Gray Area wondering, well, will we see a lot of Valyria in this? The focus is more on Nymeria and the Rhoynar and their voyages than it is on the Valyrians. I don't know how many seasons that would run. Because if they make it as like a one-shot, high-budget miniseries, I don't know how much Valyria would be in it. But if you made multiple seasons, where like all of season 1 is the war between the Rhoynar and the Valyrians, then all of season 2 is her and Sothorios fighting dinosaurs. Then all of season 3 is when she reaches the Summer Isles. Then seasons 4 and 5 are her and Dorne at the end of their journey. I would watch and want to have a 5-season show about that. I don't know if HBO is willing to pay money for that. So depending on how long that is, it's an X factor of how much we see Valyria. I'm not sure if we'd see a lot of Valyria in that in terms of the social internal stuff. We'd see dragons, but the internal factions, the Sphinxes and the young dragons, the Targaryens were nothing at that point in history. So we wouldn't see a lot of them. I'm going to direct you all in the links below and at the end of the video to the profile videos I made about Empire of Ash. From the leaks I made about, well, this is what the 3 factions are like. And it explained the Sphinxes were the original aristocracy, the blue blood aristocracy descended from their original priests and kings when they were just shepherds. But like Rome, over time, as they made conquests of the Giscari to the east and the Rhoynar to the west, new men rose up, common foot soldiers who rose to be generals, and based on their wealth from plunder and new lands they were awarded from conquest and slaves. And that over time, foot soldiers became generals, and generals got rewarded with like a dragon egg if they did really well, so they became a dragon lord. So that by the generation or 2 before the Doom of Valyria, there's 2 big factions among the dragon lords. Basically, the old boys and the new boys, the noobs. And this is what happened in Rome with the Optimates and the Populares. There's the old guard aristocrats, and then there's all the new guys who got rich off of the conquests. And the Targaryens, the books say, were not one of the more powerful families. There were about 40 Dragonlord families. They were a minor one. So fitting with that, and I think a lot of these notes came from Martin himself, they say, well, the Targaryens are part of the Young Dragons, the noob faction of the newer aristocracy that got rich off of the conquests. They are not one of the more powerful ones. So we would see the Targaryens in Empire of Ash as part of that faction. Nymeria was about 600 years before the Doom of Valyria. And these are the conquests that produced the young dragon families, the noobs. And so I imagine that if we saw a Targaryen in the Nymeria show, if they make it at all, it would be like a cameo. It would be like, hey, foot soldier, you did a good job first over the walls when we took Croyane and you opened the gates. What's your name? Well, my name is Aegon Targaryen. Oh, wow, you did such a great job. We're going to promote you and reward you with a dragon egg. Then cut to 600 years later and they're an aristocratic family because, well, my ancestor was the first over the walls when we took Croyane. That sort of thing. It would be a cameo at most of how much would we see Valyria in a Nymeria show. But if the Nymeria show mentions Sphinxes and young dragons or something, Sphinxes is the ruling class, you'll know the leaks I made, it'll confirm them. But we'll see. This is like a prequel to Empire of Ash, because it's 600 years before. But at any rate, I'm encouraged about this. I feel justified that Empire of Ash is on hold, but it's not dead. It's not abandoned. The guy who wrote up still really wants to do it in the future. He's busy with another show at the moment, but stepping stones. The fact he's doing a high-profile sports drama for HBO will probably give him more internal pull to make the Valyria show he really wants. So please check out the Empire of Ash Doom of Valyria profile leaks I made at the links I'm leaving here to see, well, what were all these leaks we heard about what Valyria was like.